Hi everyone, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to this webinar. My name's Carl. I'm here on behalf of the TEFL org. We are a teacher training institute and we love training people up in the field of English as a foreign language. I'm one of the trainers here at the TEFL org. I do the practical courses in Northern Ireland. So if you ever spend any time, if you ever want to do the weekend course in Northern Ireland, please come over and spend the weekend with me and you get to see the lovely Belfast as well. I also work as an online teacher. I've taught in many places around the world: China, Japan, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Iraq. Taught a bit in Spain and Italy as well. So if you've got any questions at all, please do put them in the chat. And hopefully I will be able to answer them. Or if not, Alan, who is monitoring the chat, will be able to answer them. Please let us know where you are in the world. We've got Bimao, I can see in Kolkata, India. Hello. Maketi's in Texas. Vincent's in London. Darian's in the US. Naomi's there as well. Hello, everyone. Please do keep them coming in. Emma's in South Africa as well. Right. So basically, it's Pride Month. And here at the TEF org, we thought we would talk a little bit about some of the best destinations to go and teach in for LGBTQ plus teachers. So I'm going to talk a bit about the destinations and give some of tips as well from my experience working around the world with people of this group. And also I'm going to talk a little bit about some resources that you might want to use in the classroom if you want to talk about this with your students at all. Right. Okay. So any questions you've got, please do put them in the chat. If you want to send us any questions though at all, you can also do that. Send us it through our Facebook page, through our website. We would be very, very happy to answer them that way instead, if you feel more comfortable doing it that way. So the best destinations. So the first thing I want to say is I have had people on my training weekends who are LGBT plus, and they have come up to me at the end and they've had some very questions, some very sort of personal questions about it, and they've been a bit worried about whether they actually is a place for them to go and teach abroad. And I have been lucky enough to taught in many places around the world with some amazing colleagues, and many of them have been homosexual or have been gay, and they have had a great time teaching. So what I always say to them, don't be put off. Okay. Don't think that this is not the time to do it. There's not a place for you. Okay. Cultural stereotypes around the world are hard to predict. So you might think, okay, there's no place for me in Saudi Arabia because of what you've read about Saudi Arabian people. There's no place for me in China from anything you might have read from Chinese blog posts, that kind of thing, or Chinese stereotypes. And every city around the world is very, very slightly different. And within that cities, you've got different types of groups. And obviously there will be LGBT plus people in those cities because they're all around the world. So don't think that you can't, that there's not going to be a place for you because you really want to go to a certain country, but you've really been put off by that country. Do some research, have a look. Don't just go straight for the first stereotypes you read about. Research is absolutely key no matter where you want to go abroad. And I think it's exactly the same here as well. You want to be able to know what the situation is there for you, whether it's easy to meet people, how sort of presentable you can be with your side of things, or do you have to keep it sort of a little bit more secret, unfortunately? That kind of thing. There's lots of research that you can find, Facebook groups, websites, blog posts, Instagram posts, that kind of thing. Also research companies as well, though, if you are going to go abroad. So companies, quite often there are companies from the UK, for example, or from Australia or from America, and they might open a school in China. They might open a school in Japan or in South America. And sometimes these schools have slightly more open work practices. They are generally a bit more tolerant than maybe some schools that are opened that are locally owned. So that might be something that's worth thinking about, something about researching as well. Seeing sort of what are some of the practices. Are there any sort of is support available to you from the schools? So don't just research countries. Also, if you see a job advertised that you like the look of, just, do a quick. Now, you might find no research for it, but you never know, find something on there. Okay, so you might find some ex-teachers, you might be able to talk to them. The other thing that I would say is be careful in interviews. Don't disclose your situation in interviews, even though if you really, really want to. Don't. People can be quite picky in interviews, and if it's a 50-50 whether it should be you or another person for the applicant, don't give them a reason to not employ you. Okay. Now, you might not be happy with that. You might want to just tell them up front. Absolutely fine. But I think be careful. Like I've actually lost jobs because I don't have hair, for example. People have really strange reasons to turn people down. Okay, so just be a bit careful in an interview. All right. Thank you for those questions. I promise you I'm going to get to them. Okay. Right. Big parts of the world are still seen, compared to the UK, Canada, Australia, other parts of the world are still seen as quite conservative. So I have worked in countries where, for example, they didn't want me and my girlfriend living together. And I remember there was a teacher, a manager at a center, a local manager in a center in Iraq. And he actually said to me, "Thank you very much for keeping your unmarried relationship secret from the students." We actually hadn't tried to, but that's just what he said. And that's what he wanted. The thought of a man and a woman not married living together really, really got him. So just remember that big parts of the world are still seen as conservative in many ways, not just on the issue we're talking about today. And religion is important, and religion does come up in many, many parts of the world. I've taught in Islamic countries where Islamic is the main religion, and I've been told off for drinking, for example, during Ramadan hours. And because, for me, I don't follow that religion, but religion is still, and people sort of think that you should follow the rules of the religion no matter where you are in the world. So just be careful of places that are maybe a bit like that if this is your situation. Okay, so do a bit of research, because religion does come up a lot in classrooms, and obviously there are some religions that have big views about this, rightly or wrongly. So just be a bit aware of that. Expect some strong opinions from students and from teachers on a range of issues. So I remember that I've had I remember doing a business English class, for example, and I gave this was in Vietnam, and I gave the students just some information about disability laws in the UK, and how we, have these laws where we can't discriminate, for example, that kind of thing. And they were just so shocked about this, that, in the UK, we would allow disabled people to have a fulfilled work career. The amount of really rude, I thought, questions that came in from my Vietnamese class, who up at that point had just been seen as these lovely, lovely people. They were so open to be able to talk about this kind of thing. And, it's the same things with race sometimes. It's the same things with age and sexism. And unfortunately, in this LGBTQ plus as well. So just be aware that there are lots of strong opinions, as there probably are in your country as well. But around the world, they can be quite vocal with some of these, and it might come as a shock to hear them. So you might not have come out to your class, your workmates, for example, but you might find that local teachers still talk about it and that kind of thing. So just be a bit careful. Many parts around the world, including some parts of the UK, for example, where I am, children are told what to think, and they sort of tend to follow the same rules that they get from their parents. And I've had really, racist, religious comments, again, anti-religious comments about other religions in classes from kids. So again, just be a bit careful of talking to your kids about it, then if you have kids classes, because they again might have strong opinions which they might then send forward to their parents and that kind of thing. Be prepared for comments, and particularly lots of questions about it. Quite often around the world, if a student or a teacher does find out about you, they want to ask loads of questions. I've had so many questions about my weight, for example, around the world, that they think it's perfectly acceptable to ask teachers from a different country these questions. So just be prepared that if you are out with your colleagues, with your students, for example, it can cause a lot of questions and can cause a lot of comments. So you might need to be quite guarded if you do go to these countries that are seen as a bit conservative. And in a minute, I'm going to show to you why I think you should still go. But just be a bit prepared for them if they do find out your situation or you tell them. Okay. Right. So a good website to look at is this website here, asherferguson.com. I'm just remembered if I've forgotten the R in it. I think Alan in the chat is going to put a link into it for me anyway, if I have miscopied that one. Right. So what is this website? It's basically a website where they talk about different countries and sort of what to expect in different countries in terms of LGBTQ plus laws, rules, that kind of thing. There's other guides on it as well, but this is one of the things where they look at. And they basically look at all the laws that country has towards this group, and basically they rank the countries on how open they are and how advisable it is generally they think to sort of go there, maybe give your life there. And they look at things like whether same-sex couples can adopt. They look at laws inside workplaces against discrimination, whether there's certain laws against violence, and this kind of thing. And broadly, the ranking goes to how LGBTQ plus friendly a country is, right? But what I would say is you could go on that website and you might say, for example, you really want to go to China and go teach in China, and you'll see that China is really ranked low down. Okay. But what I would say is that every country has people in it of all different types. Okay. So I would not personally be massively put off, but I think it is a very good idea if this is the sort of thing you want to look at, and if it's really, really important to you, that you go to a country that that is friendly. Yeah. So China's quite low on it. Japan is quite low on it, but I have been to I went to a gay event in Japan to go see a DJ play there, and everything was fine. Everything was very open, you know, even though Japan with its laws is ranked low. Tokyo, there's lots and lots of events available for people of all different types. Okay. And it's worth looking for groups before traveling there. So if you want to go to China, for example, you know, look for groups around what you are and talk to them. Look for Facebook groups, look for Reddit groups. There will be groups talking about it. Okay. Generally, on the whole, Europe is seen as the best sort of destinations to go to. And Sweden, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, and Belgium are in the top 10 best ranked countries to go and live. However, what you will see is that Sweden, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, and Belgium, there aren't lots and lots of jobs available. There are some jobs available. There are language schools English language schools in all of these countries, but the population as a whole speaks really good English. So what you will probably find is that you're teaching sort of refugees or people who aren't, you'll go to Stockholm, you'll be teaching people not from Sweden English who want to learn English because all the Swedish people have learned English. So there's not a massive market for teachers, but there are jobs there. So a bit of research, find some language schools, send off some emails, say, look, this is me, I'd like to come. Do you have any jobs available? Yes, come for an interview on Zoom, something like that. worth it. Okay. But another one that's in the top 10 that definitely has a lot more readily available TEFL jobs is Malta. Malta is a massively growing EFL destination. I sort of have read some reports where how it's this summer, I think it's going to overtake Ireland and the UK for students. It's a massive EFL destination, not just for Maltese people. Lots of people come from all over the world to Malta to go and learn English in Malta. It's a really, really big destination. And this might be, if you know, people, it's hard to predict this kind of thing, but it might be the biggest destination in Europe for general English for kids, for summer schools and that kind of thing. And it's really, really, really friendly to all sorts of groups. So that might be something worth looking at. I did a quick search earlier for EFL jobs in Malta. I found quite a few that came up there. So definitely worth thinking about, definitely worth looking about. Okay. Now, there is a bit of an issue with trying to get a visa, that kind of thing. But if you're eligible for it, it's a great destination to go to. And Malta's a beautiful, beautiful place. Next up in that ranking is Portugal and Spain, which are a lot more EFL friendly. There's a lot more jobs available EFL wise than there are with the Scandinavian countries and the Netherlands and Belgium, like I spoke about before. They're both top 10 on this Asher Ferguson list for friendliness towards LGBTQ plus people. Spain tends to have more jobs than Portugal. It's bigger for a start, so there's more jobs available. They tend to be more advertised. You see more jobs advertised in Spain than you do in Portugal. Visas can be an issue. I'm not going to lie. If you've got an EU passport, absolutely easy to get there. Absolutely perfect to get there. If you're coming from outside the EU, can be quite difficult, but it's very, very open. I'm not going to go into each of these countries, you know, why this one's higher ranked in a list than this one, why this one's more open, more friendly than this one. Go on the link that Alan's just put in the chat there, asherferguson.com. Go on that and have a look. That goes into a lot more detail than I could, you know. I just want to talk a bit more about the destinations and basically how to TEFL in them. Spain tends to have more jobs, as I said, than Portugal. You will need to do more research to find jobs in Portugal. I'm not saying there aren't any, but you just will need to go find some. So if I really wanted to go work in Lisbon, for example, I would look on Google. What I tend to do when I want to go and look for a place, I tend to go on Google Maps and I type in language schools in English, see if I can find any, then I start emailing them. If not, I find out what the Portuguese is for language schools on Google Translate. I put that into Google Maps and more come up sometimes that way. So you will have to do a bit of research there, but there is job there. Now, the thing that I would say about some parts of Spain and definitely some parts of Portugal is the cost of living can be quite expensive in terms of rent, in terms of housing. So it's something to think about if these are the sort of places that you want to go to. Yeah. Look at less heralded locations to find work. So lots of people in Spain want to go work in Barcelona. Lots of people in Spain want to go work in Madrid, maybe want to go work in Valencia. What I would look at is maybe places like Almeria, beautiful place. Look at places such as Malaga, you know, really, really beautiful place. There's loads of different destinations in Spain with loads of language schools. This morning, I was doing some examining online in Spain in some tiny little towns where there was language schools. So you don't necessarily have to go to the big destinations, but you might find that the big cities have are more open to people of all different persuasions. Okay. Thank you for. Please do if you do have any questions, please do put them in. Please do let us know. If not, just send us a message and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Right. So English-speaking countries are also generally quite high on this list. And Canada, I think, is number one. There's also UK, Australia, and Ireland are pretty high on the list. So Canada is, once you're there, there's quite a bit of work. However, getting there on a work visa is the problem. The similar idea with Australia. Okay, Australia, you've got to have a visa to get there. I mean, you got a visa to get to all of these, but Australia tends to be one of the more difficult ones. So does the UK. Ireland is a bit easier if you've got an EU passport. But all of these are high on the list. If you've got the right to work in any of these places, you will find work. So it can be a bit tricky to get visas for them. I'm not going to lie and say it's easy to get work in these countries if you're from India or from South America, that kind of thing. It can be difficult. You'd have to work out whether you're eligible to get the visas. In the UK and in Ireland, a lot of the work is quite seasonal. So there's lots and lots of work over the summer in the UK and Ireland, at university level or at kids level, teenagers level for summer schools, that kind of thing. Generally pays pretty well, generally gives you accommodation, that kind of thing. So it's a really good way to see parts of the UK, see parts of Ireland to get some summer school work. You might need higher qualifications to get there. So, to go work in a university, for example, they might expect you to have quite a high TEFL qualification. They would probably definitely expect you to have a degree, that kind of thing. Obviously, within all of these countries, there's big cosmopolitan cities such as Sydney, such as Dublin, such as London, such as Vancouver. There's also quite smaller cities. So if you are LGBTQ+, you might want to think about staying near the main cosmopolitan cities. You might also not want to. But that's generally how I've found it when I've taught around the world, is that people want to be in the big cities. So outside Europe, you're starting to look at Central and South America, and Chile is ranked really, really high on the list. There are language schools in Chile. You don't see many jobs advertised for people to come to Chile. You do every now and again. It's not unheard of, but you don't see lots and lots of jobs advertised. You've got to also, South Americans can be a bit difficult with this. Each country has sort of slightly different laws in terms of employing people from abroad. But if I really wanted to go to Chile, and I would love to go to Chile, I would again just look at some language schools. I would contact them. I would say, what is the situation? If I came there, would you have work for me? That kind of thing. You'd probably have to end up working for 2 or 3 different schools, that kind of thing. Ask them about visas. Why not? Also on the list is Cuba. Now, there used to be loads and loads of jobs advertised in Cuba. There's less and less now, I've noticed. But there did used to be quite a few jobs in Cuba, and I really wish I'd taken one of those when they were available. But I'm guessing there's still language schools there. Argentina, big economic problems at the moment, but there's definitely language schools there. There's definitely work there. Uruguay is quite a rich country in South America, but there's definitely something that you can have a look at there. Brazil, I've been to Brazil, very, very open in many, many places to all sorts of things. And but there are laws as to who Brazilian companies can employ. You tend to already have to be there. They tend to not advertise from abroad. Costa Rica is a lot more open. They have jobs available. I see them advertised all the time. Lots of jobs available if you wanted to go backpack around Central America and find that in Costa Rica. And also Colombia. Now, I've put here they're ranked high-ish. So they're not all ranked right near the top of the list to be the most open, to be the most friendly, but they are pretty much up there. So something to worth thinking about. I have done a webinar especially on South and Central America, so it might be worth digging that out, where I talk a lot more about all the individual countries and how best to get there. Yeah. You've got to do your research on the visas. Yeah. Whether you can work there legally or work there illegally, are you happy to do that? That kind of thing. South America, Central America can be quite difficult to get visas for sometimes, specific countries. Some are very easy, some are quite difficult. Right, what about Asia? You might be thinking, where can I go in Asia? Now, protection laws are not very strong in the workplace in Asia. So what I mean is, if a company wants to sack you for a specific reason, and it could be something simple like they don't like the way you look, they don't like the way you dress, all the way up to, your race, all the way up to your sexual orientation. Okay. The countries don't have quite strong labor laws. So it's not necessarily that they are against LGBTQ people in terms of the labor laws. It's just they don't really help anyone. So protection laws can be not very strong there. So you might find that if, unfortunately, they find out about your orientation and they use that against you, you might, it's not like in the UK, you would be able to sue them, you'd be able to take them to court. A lot of parts of Asia don't have these sort of laws in place. Be aware of your rights if you're going to go work there. That's what I would say. But don't expect much help. Like if you got sacked for a horrible reason that was not your fault at all and was just you being a natural person, and you went to the British embassy and said, look, this has happened to me, I've lost my job, they're probably not going to help you much. They don't have really much to stand on. There's not much there to help you with. Okay. But I'm not saying don't go out there because of this reason. I'm just saying be aware of it. Okay. I personally think that the big cosmopolitan cities are the best. So I have taught, as I said, in Tokyo. I've taught in Ho Chi Minh City. I've been to Shanghai. I've been to Beijing, been to Hong Kong, that kind of thing. There are big gay areas in each of these cities. Okay, well, not necessarily big ones, but there are gay areas within those cities. And Thailand as well, Bangkok. And I know many, many people of different orientations that live there very, very happily. Okay. Don't think that because China, Japan is low down this list, that it's a no-go area for you. Don't think that at all, because it's definitely more open than you would think. It's just the laws aren't strong. But once you're there, it actually might be fine, might be better than you thought it would be. Okay. So these are the ones that I would personally recommend. Would be Thailand, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. Okay. These are probably the best destinations. Now, I'm put best in like commas there because I've also been to Cambodia, for example, and I know that there's no problems there for many people. Even sort of countries such as Singapore, it's quite open there as well in some parts. So don't think that all of Asia is off limits and only go to these, but these are probably the best and safest types of destinations to go to. In China, look at places such as Shanghai and Hong Kong. I think that they are really quite open cities, very cosmopolitan, worldwide cities where there's lots of different races, lots of different orientations going on there. If you want to go on the JET program or the EPIC program, there are many LGBTQ plus teachers on there, and they have, they're not going to care, the JET program or the EPIC program, who they really just care as long as the person hits the criteria and they're teaching wise and that kind of thing. So definitely something to think about. And personally, I have worked with teachers who have made their life in these countries who are LGBTQ plus. Very, very happily, live a very, very happy life. Absolutely no problem. So don't think that these places are off limits at all. Absolutely not. Now, finally, I just want to talk a bit about some resources to use in class. So maybe resources maybe you want to talk about this sort of thing in class. You want to make students a bit more aware of it. Yeah. And maybe you want to talk about the situation in your own country. Fine. And teaching cultural ideals is useful. I think ideal is probably the wrong word, but different, what the ideal is in your country, because who's to say your country is right or wrong, but it's definitely a useful thing. And I have, as I said, for example, in Vietnam, I tried to talk to my business English class about labor protection laws that we have for different groups. They thought that was mad and insane that such things would exist. And you might want to talk about sexual orientation in your classes, racism laws, that kind of thing. I think it's absolutely fine. If you can, perfect. But what I would say to you is be careful. I've tried wrongly to bring up politics every now and again in a class. I have been told off by students for having these strong opinions. They give me you've got to be able to fight your corner a little bit. You've also got to be quite aware of what you're saying in class. You don't want to get arrested. So just check wherever you are in the world. If you're online, it's not necessarily a problem. But if you are somewhere in the world and you want to talk about it a bit more, just make sure that you're not seen as promoting it if that's something that's against the law. Because although that law is ethically, morally wrong, maybe, it's still a law and you don't want to end up in prison for it. So just be aware, be careful. But imagine though, if you had a student that was secretly keeping this all to themselves, that they were, and a teacher actually was up in front of them speaking about it, how sort of maybe liberating and how free that might be. Okay. So just be aware of how much you can talk about it. Be aware of the students. I wouldn't necessarily go talking it to kids. I'd probably keep it to small groups, maybe that kind of thing. I'd be careful of the cities. If you're in a rural place or a main city, all that kind of thing. But just imagine how freeing that would be for the student. The best two websites to find resources. I'm not going to show some resources. But the best two to look at are One Stop English and the British Council. And these have some lessons on it aimed at trying to talk a bit more about pride, to be a bit more open about the situation. Yeah. So this might be something that's worth looking at, something that's worth thinking about. Okay. Have a look on those. Type into Google One Stop English, LGBTQ+, it will come up. Same with the British Council, that kind of thing. The other thing to think about, and we'll put some links into the chats about some of these, where they have some good videos which you might want to make lessons from. And these come from sort of human rights charities and human rights organizations such as Stonewall, for example. And we'll put the links into the chat. But again, they sort of have videos that you can get information from and maybe make your own lessons from. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you found that useful. If you do have any more particular questions about any of those countries, please do put them in the chat or please do message us. Okay. We will definitely answer them for you. All right. First question, Muketa. Hi, I don't think this is about our theme, but we'll answer it anyway. You wish to take the TEFL course on campus in Colombia? Right. No, I can't recommend a Us here at the TEFL org, we are an online, primarily teacher training organization. You sign up, you do a course with us, you give us a very small amount of money for the type of research and the type of information you're going to get. You learn online. We do offer practical courses. These are in America, in Spain, in the UK, in Ireland at the moment. So you want to go do it in Colombia? Go research TEFL centers, teacher training courses, Colombia. That's all. I can't give you any advice on that at all. Good luck. Gina, you're moving to Portugal from the US with your son. How is Lisbon? So Lisbon's one of the perfect places to go to. It's ranked really high. They've put a really concerted effort over the last sort of 40 years to make their laws a bit more up to date. I think in the 70s and the early 80s, I think it was quite difficult. But now, really open, really cosmopolitan, really friendly place to people of all different types of orientations. Okay. So I think it would be a fantastic place. Lisbon is a beautiful, beautiful city. Go for it, Gina. I'm sure he will be absolutely fine. So one thing I should say to add on to that is that the United States is ranked quite low. So you're going from a country that is ranked quite low for friendliness all the way to a country that's ranked quite higher. That's all I would say about that. Gaif or Gaif, I'm really sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong. What do I suggest if you teach people a new field? You've changed your career. Fantastic. TEFL is a perfectly great career to get into to change your career. It's really, you could use a lot of your experience before and maybe even teach that. For example, business English, medical English, educational English, academic English, that kind of thing. So it's really, really worth doing. Okay, if you go do your 120-hour course with us, you look for jobs, go for it. We've got a job center on our website. Have a look at some of the jobs there, see if you are eligible for them, see if you can go for it. Okay. Vincent, hi. You spent time in Nepal. Lovely. Yeah. Right. So most teachers that I've taught with who are queer, for example, they have hidden it. Yeah, they've told, their friends, people that they trust within the teaching center. But I think on the whole, most do hide it. Sad, I know, really unfortunate. But the reason being is that, people do have strong opinions about this kind of thing. There are maybe laws against this kind of thing in the countries where you are around the world. Obviously, the organization that you worked for, they probably don't have a gay friendly town to go place you in India or Nepal. So yeah, unfortunately, you would probably have to hide it. Now, if you go to different countries, you might not need to hide it. But there are, unfortunately, some countries where you do have to still hide it. I would love to sit here right now and say to you, yes, be open, Vincent. Just tell the world as soon as you walk in. But I think probably more realistic advice is to say, I hope you enjoy it. You'll be okay. But, you might have to keep it hidden a bit. Okay. Sorry, Vincent, if that hasn't really helped you. Or another question. Yeah, so this is sort of a follow-on question. Should we visit countries where we're not wanted or safe? So, look, I had one of my best friends in TEFL. I met him in Sri Lanka. He's gay, and he was quite sort of open about it a bit, really, in the evening time at least. And he had no problem. He then went to Saudi Arabia. He lasted a while there. I think he had a good time there. Saudi Arabia would not be seen as generally a destination to go to, He'd been doing TEFL for many, many years. So maybe he knew when was the right time to be open about it. What I would say to you, Vincent, if this is something that you want to, and if you did have a bad experience in India and Nepal, why not try to get to a country where it's seen as a lot more available, seen a lot more open? Why not go for it? Go for big mega cities where there's lots of people there. You'll find people, you'll fall in with people that you can feel comfortable around. That's what I'd say. But in the classroom, sometimes you need to keep it quiet. It's just one of the things I think that comes along with it. I'm really sorry, Vince. I'd love to give you better advice to say that everything's going to be okay if you were not toning it down, but I don't think that would be ethically right of me. Hello, not bought it. All the hellos are still coming in, which is lovely. Madalena, hi. Are there lots of positions available in Northern Ireland and Wales? You coming for my jobs, Madalena? Short answer is not as many as there are in England. I'm talking about Northern Ireland here. Not as many as there are in Scotland, England, and especially the Republic of Ireland. There's lots and lots of work available in Dublin. Loads of work available in Dublin in the summer, especially teaching kids. So year-round posts, there's not a huge amount in Northern Ireland, mainly because it's not seen as a big destination for people to come and learn English. It's just not seen as that. It's a shame. People should do it. There are some good language schools here. Wales is a bit different. Cardiff, Swansea, especially in the summer, has lots of language school kids come in there. There's quite a bit of work there. I once ran a language school in Swansea over the summer. some of the best years of my life there. I also worked and managed a school in Cardiff. It was absolutely fantastic. There are year-round language schools in Cardiff and in Swansea and other parts of Wales as well. Send them an email. Do a Google language schools Cardiff, language schools Swansea, language schools Llandudno. Don't ask me how to spell that. The bigger towns, put them in there, send some emails and see if they've got any work available for you. Why not? Jennifer, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me a question about epilepsy. I really don't know much about that at all. I'm afraid, Jennifer. I really don't know how to help you with that. You'd have to speak to your doctor really and just see. I don't think there's any countries that are better or worse for epilepsy. You'd have to speak to your doctor about that and get medical advice. Sorry. Not Baltic. Hi. You're retiring. Very good. Congratulations. The question is, which countries are ageist? Ooh. Specifically ageist towards women. Which ones are friendly? Qualification-wise, you're probably quite strong. Right. I've always been intrigued by your username, Not Baltic, as well. Please send me a message telling me how you've come up with the username Not Baltic, because you've been here before many times. And I've always thought, what do they mean by that? Anyway, right, let's talk about the question. Right, so the industry, I think, isn't ageist. What is ageist is the laws that governments have in terms of who can or cannot get visas, I think. And they do vary around the world. Yeah, depending on different countries have different rules as to what age you can be to get a visa. Asia, quite often when you're sort of heading towards the 60s, it can be quite difficult to get work. What countries are really good at not caring about ages tends to be some parts of the Middle East. So, for example, in Iraq, I worked with an 80-year-old teacher. Absolutely fine. He absolutely had no problems. He wasn't a great teacher, but that's neither here nor there. There's 20-somethings that aren't great teachers. The other ones to think about is Europe. Europe is very, very open because they can't really have age discrimination laws. So big chunks of Europe, you'll be absolutely fine to work in. Parts of the UK as well, go for it. But generally, if you're heading towards your 60s, Asia can be quite difficult. What I would be doing, say you want to go work in Vietnam, I'd be Googling Vietnamese work visa age limit, something like that, and have a look at that. I think Alan, did we do a webinar about this? I can't remember, Alan, if we did a webinar about ageist teachers or not. We've done so many. Alan's just sending me a message. Yes, Alan thinks we did do a webinar purely about this. So Not Baltic, go back and have a look about a webinar where I talked for a whole year. A whole hour. Didn't talk for a year. Talked for a whole hour about it. Okay, good luck. Madalena, what higher qualifications are necessary to get a teaching post in the UK? So basically, it depends on the sort of job you're going for. If you're going for top university jobs, they expect degrees, they expect master's level qualifications. You're going to go work in summer schools. Quite often, if you've got the 120-hour certificate, they'll take you on. So it really does sort of depend on what you're going for. To go for schools, you need to have a special university qualification called a PGCE. I don't have one of those. I can't go work in schools in the UK. Right? That does depend on that. I've done a webinar about teaching in the UK and Ireland. Akam, hi. Which one is better to get a TEFL certification, online or in an academy? So you don't need to go to an academy. You can do an online course which is a 120-hour certificate, teach you good techniques in how to be a teacher. You've got that certificate. You can apply for jobs around the world. You can. What we do say to you is that if you don't have any experience, if you don't necessarily have a degree, for example, you might want to add on qualifications to make you stand out a bit more. Because if someone's got a degree in the 120-hour certificate, that's going to be different from if someone has just the 120-hour certificate. The degree is unfortunately probably going to get the work. Okay. So you can add on practical courses where you spend the weekend with someone like me. That will give you more advice. That will give you more things to talk about on your CV, for example, more likely to get a job. That's the advice I would give you. Akam, you always hear that you should be physically in Thailand to get a job opportunity. Is that right? No, Thailand is quite strange. There's sometimes jobs advertised, but there's often jobs not advertised in Thailand. There are loads and loads of language schools in Thailand. And if you are from a country that's eligible to get a work visa there, you go over there, it'll be absolutely fine. Okay. You know, you'll that'll be great. Yeah. But you will also see jobs available as well. Good luck, Akam. Yeah, Jennifer, high schools and senior schools and primary schools tend to want people to speak Welsh as well. But I remember when I was EFL in, most people didn't speak Welsh as well in Wales. Thank you for all the links, everybody. Right, okay. Insurance, right? Oh, that's an interesting question. I think this is the last question. Thank you, Jennifer. Right, insurance. Firstly, when I've been abroad on holiday, I always get insurance. Whether I'm backpacking or whether I'm just on a 2-week holiday somewhere. When I'm abroad teaching, I have never paid for private insurance. Every company I've ever worked for has covered the insurance. And this is quite a big thing to ask for in job applications. Okay. In the interviews, it can be quite useful to say, what will happen to me if I get sick? And they might turn around and say, well, you have to pay. They might also turn around and say, no, we are covered by your insurance. So just if you're going to go work abroad, you shouldn't have to pay for your own insurance. And quite often, insurance companies in the UK, Australia, Ireland, wherever it might be, won't cover you if you're going abroad to work. Or if they do, it's super, super expensive. So just ask in the interviews, what will happen to me if I get sick? They probably won't cover you for possessions, but they will probably be covering you for medical side of things, Jennifer. Okay. Hope that answers your question. Thank you, everybody. Interesting topic today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you do have any questions, please send us a message here at the TEFL org. You can send us a message through the Facebook page, on our website, tefl.org. At the bottom right, there's a chat with us function where you can send a message. Yeah, please do. Please, if you did like this, please do give us a thumbs up. We've done so many of these videos around the world, about places around the world over the last couple of years now. So we've done so many different themes, so many different types of them, covered lots of different things. So look on our YouTube page, look on our Facebook page, and see if you can find anything on there. If you didn't enjoy it, also do put that in the chat as well, because we like feedback. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.